I'm going to 100% Firewatch, and in order to do so, I must walk, hike, and climb my way through the Shoshone National Forest. Before I get started, Firewatch is story heavy and this video will contain spoilers. We first start off Firewatch by learning the backstory of our protagonist Henry through a text-based summary. We learn of Henry's love interest Julia and how their life together as a couple began. Julia was offered a job across the country, and after further discussion and agreement, she takes it. Julia is sent home on paid leave after an episode involving a misunderstanding with a colleague. This is where things take a turn for the worst. After many doctor visits, it appears that Julia is suffering from early onset dementia at 41. Julia's health continues to deteriorate to the point of needing 24/7 care. She moves into a care facility to better look after her, along with Julia's sister moving into town to help out. It's been a rough time for Henry and he needs an escape. Henry goes on to see an ad in the paper for a new job, this being a fire lookout in the Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming. Welcome to Firewatch. After the brief intro, going into the backstory of Henry, we arrive at our lookout tower. Soon after turning on the power, we are introduced to the only other person Henry interacts with during this game, this being Delilah, through the radio. After getting a good night's sleep, we start our first official day as a fire lookout, which after speaking with Delilah starts with us investigating some fireworks off in the distance. This being a very hot and dry time is a huge risk for fires starting in the forest, and we must find the culprits. This is where we are first introduced to reading the map and directions to find out our way around the national park. Around the park we can find these cache boxes that may contain ropes, updates to our map for certain objectives, as well as different ways to traverse the forest. After some brief hiking, we rappel down a slope, taking a big fall as the rope snaps on us. We're doing okay. Shortly after that, we find the culprit's campsite with some fireworks we need to confiscate. And after following the trail close to the lake, we find our two culprits, letting them know that we confiscated their fireworks and warning them. They're not too happy about this. As the day slowly comes to an end, we must trek our way back out to the fire lookout, using our new mapping skills to do so. As we are almost back to the tower at the bottom of the hill, we see a flashlight shining on us, and although it's an innocent moment, it leaves a chilling vibe. Arriving back at the tower, we actually find out that the typewriter that we were given by Julia's sister was actually on the ground at the base of the lookout. And as we go to the top of the lookout, we can actually find out that someone broke into our lookout. The whole room is ransacked, the window is broken from the typewriter being thrown out of it, and the worst possible outcome, our bedding was stolen. At this point, we are not sure who broke in, whether or not it was a mysterious man we saw at the base of the climb or the teenagers getting revenge for ruining their fun. We then decide to get some rest. Waking up on day 2 gets us the achievement Good First Day for completing day 1. Starting day 2, we speak with Delilah on a new emergency in the forest. The communication lines were down by a recent storm the previous night. Our goal is to hike out to the closest communication poles in our zone and figure out what is going on. Off we go on our journey, starting out by figuring out where on the map we must trek to. While out on our hike, Delilah gets a call. While remaining on the line, she discusses with an anonymous person, and the topic of the conversation appears to be Henry. However, after the call ends and Henry asks, Delilah acts mysterious and says it's no big deal, brushing it off and going radio silent. Shortly after this call, we encounter the hill that the communication lines reside on in our zone, and upon climbing closer to the peak of the hill, we finally find beer cans indicating that someone has been previously there in the area drinking. Finally, closing in on the downed wire, we find some more beer cans, the clear and cut wire, as well as a scrap of cloth telling us to go to hell. From what seems to be petty revenge, could lead to a large forest fire going unreported or worse, medical issues with someone in need in the forest. Following their trail of trash, we find a backpack hanging in a tree that seems to have belonged to another hiker at one point. Inside the backpack, we find a disposable camera, as well as some fresh climbing rope. To get our next achievement, we must fill the disposable camera with photos. This can be done over the course of a playthrough, or right then and there. I decided to fill it up with nice shots of the surrounding area. By fully filling the camera with pictures, we unlock the achievement Shutterbug for filling a disposable camera with photos. Continuing on with our day, our next objective is to find where the teens went. We climb our way down a cliff with a newly acquired rope that we found in the backpack, and continue our trek. We eventually see a plume of smoke going up into the sky off in the distance. This could be caused by either the start of a forest fire or a campsite. Our best bet is the campsite of the teens who cut the line. We slowly start to make our way towards the origin of the smoke, and on our way to the smoke, we finally reveal why we're out there in the forest. The story of Julia and her current condition, seeing how Delilah is the only person Henry speaks to while on his duties, he finally opens up. On our journey to finding the teens consists of many miles, multiple climbs, and a trek across our zone. As we slowly approach the source of the smoke, we find a piece of cloth stuck in a tree. It appears to have been torn off something. and by going under the archway, we find the campsite, which is in ruins. We just so happen to find our sheets, which confirms our suspicions that the teens are the ones that broke into the tower, and approaching their tent, we actually find it ripped to shreds with clothes all over the place, and there's a note actually left from the teenagers on the remains of the tent. In the note, the teens blame us for the ruined campsite, as well as apparently some stolen panties, and as we're aware, Henry was across the zone, so there must be something or someone else to blame for this. Without having to trek back to the tower, we are immediately sent into day 3, unlocking us the achievement Back to Work for completing day 2. We start day 3 boarding up the window that was broken into. While talking with Delilah, we need to search for some more boards at the base of the tower to finish the job. Collecting the wood allows us to finish boarding up the window and to secure the tower. Going on from there, we talk with Delilah, who states we must officially start our position by sitting in the tower watching out for fires or events that need us. This completes day 3, setting us a couple days into the future into day 9. After a brief discussion with Delilah while watching the sunset, we find that the teens that set off the fireworks are missing. We decide not to say anything from there and wait for future updates, as they've been causing previous issues and problems and they might turn up. After another brief day, we skip forward to day 15. We awake in the middle of the night to Delilah's voice telling us to pick up the radio. This of course is a dream, as we need the radio to speak with Delilah in the first place. We pick up the radio to Julia on the other end of the radio. We have a brief talk with Julia on how she's doing, as well as Delilah and how we're doing at the fire lookout. We fall back to sleep afterwards. We have another time skip to day 33. We start day 33 in the middle of the forest on our way to pick up supplies left for us. Since we are remote from any towns, this is how Henry and the other lookouts get their food and essentials. The supply drop is back up north towards the backpack with disposable camera we found. We arrive at the supply drop and pick up the package that was left for us in our fire lookout tower. This ends day 33 for Henry, skipping to the evening of day 64. We walk out of the tower to a forest fire. Talking with Delilah, we learn of a hotshot crew of firemen that will be sent out to fight the fire. We shoot our shot and say the name should be Delilah. After further discussion and getting shut down, we decide the name June, which is Delilah's middle name. We are introduced to the June fire. To be honest, at this moment, I was skeptical with the mood of the game. With everything that was going on, I positioned myself to see the stairs as I was convinced there was going to be a person/jump scare. I'm not sure why. After discovering the June fire, we end up on day 76. Starting the day in the forest, we are on our way to do some illegal fishing. As we are heading down to the lake anyways, we are tasked with looking for signs of bears. We head off towards the lake. After some searching along the lakeside, we actually come across a rock with a cute little turtle. We decide to pick up the turtle and adopt it into the Fire Lookout family, unlocking the achievement Love Turts for adopting a turtle as a pet. Finally, after passing it what seems like 50 times, we discover a clipboard by the lakeside, where we originally turned the teenage boombox off. After looking over the clipboard, we discover logs of Henry and Delilah's radio discussions. The clipboard has dates, logs of the discussions, labeling who said what, along with little drawings of fire lookouts and other events that we discussed. This leaves a very mysterious vibe. We then hear a mysterious noise and we must find the source. Trekking back towards where we found the turtle, we discover a red walkie-talkie across the little log bridge on the ground. We pick up the red radio and immediately get 1-2 Mayweathered. Waking up after some time, speaking with Delilah, we realize the attacker took all three: the red walkie-talkie, the clipboard, logs of Henry and Delilah's communication, and our lucky PSA-10 Blue-Eye White Dragon. The only thing we got is the name, Wapiti Station. As there's an area in our zone named Wapiti Meadow, we head on over to see what's going on. Arriving at the meadow, we discover it is surrounded by chain link fences and the main gate is locked. We attempt to break the lock with a loose stone and we decide to get in another way. After failing to get in, Delilah mentions we should head out to the firemen that are fighting the fire. They should be able to help us get into the locked area. After hiking across our zone close to where the firemen are, we come across a couple old snowmobiles that were stripped for parts. Continuing on, we find the camp with the bridge destroyed. After some quick searching, we actually find a high ground where we can leap across the gap from the high land into the camp. Checking out the camp reveals that the firemen are already gone, leaving behind nothing but some random trash and a spare axe. We take the axe. We also find a letter discussing Wapiti Station. The area turns out to be a research site. We decide to head back towards Wapiti Meadow to get through the gate. Now we have the axe. While on our trek back to Wapiti Meadow, Delilah decides it's a great idea to mention we may be followed through the woods. Along with the ambiance and music kind of cutting out, totally took this as a cue there was going to be a jump scare or something, or a chase scene, but nothing appeared to show itself. We then immediately hear someone else on the radio coughing. Someone is listening to us. Delilah tells us to change of plans and we go back to the tower and stay there to defend ourselves. We need a game plan. This completes day 76, unlocking the achievement Someone's Out There for completing day 76. Starting out day 77, we start out by reaching out to Delilah, even though she told us not to reach out. We are then greeted by a rather happy Delilah, but given the past events in the last couple of days, something is definitely up. Delilah tells us to look at one of the posters we have posted in our tower, which has different plant and tree species on it. Delilah mentions one of the trees specifically, It also tells us that there's an area named after the type of tree. We must trek back to that area for noon. This happens to be Cottonwood Creek for us. We hit the road, or trails, heading back into that direction, and we inform Delilah that we have arrived in Cottonwood Creek. She tells us there's a cache box there with a new code. She dropped us off a new walkie-talkie. That way we can communicate without being listened to. Now that we have a clean line of communication, we head on over to Wapiti Meadow to break in, hopefully finding out what exactly is going on. And after a short journey, we arrive back at the locked gate, ready for X to break it off. Breaking into the fenced-in area and check out the box, we're stung by a bee, unlocking our next achievement, Bee Plot, for getting stung by a bee. It happens. Following along the path further into Wapiti Meadow after being stung by the bee, we discover some equipment and a large monitoring tower. Continuing along the path further down the valley, we actually discover a camp. The camp contains a soil grid, some more fencing, communication and monitoring equipment, and a tent with more. Further exploring into the tent gets us a new piece of tech, and we discover supplies and beds. And further into that tent, even more on a table, we find a folder containing much more data on Henry and Delilah. This information is extensive, even including information that Henry did not even tell Delilah. Delilah tells us in a panic that we should burn it all to the ground, leaving him with nothing. However, not only burning down the camp is risk starting a huge forest fire, or worse, killing people. We take that information and the new receiver and head back to the fire lookout. After almost falling from the rock bridge given out on us, we see that the camp is on fire. We did not start that, and someone else set it on fire after we left. It must be close by. We tell Delilah to call the fire in and continue to head back to the tower. Day 77 ends. On our journey back, unlocking us the achievement, Burn the Place Down, for completing Day 77. It's now the evening. The wave transmitter starts to go off. As we head out of the tower in search of the signal, we hike through the woods as the signal starts to get louder and faster. After slowly arriving to the signal, we go through some bushes finding a backpack. And picking up the backpack reveals that it was rigged with a loud alarm behind it. And searching through the pack, we actually find the keys to the underground cave that were lost long ago. As we start heading back to the fire lookout, we actually reach out to Delilah on the radio, checking with what we found. We mention that we are in the woods by ourselves, but Delilah mentions that we're safe in our tower. Except that's not us. Someone broke into the lookout tower again. We rush back up the hill towards the tower, up the stairs through the door. No one is near the tower. However, there's a taped Walkman on the door. After listening to it, we realize they recorded our conversation at the camp before, with Delilah discussing burning the place down. This is damning evidence pointing us burning the camp down. Day 77 ends, and we move on to Day 78. We can see on Day 78 that the local fires are much worse. The conditions around us have worsened drastically, along with some false calls causing issues with who caused the fires, starting the pot. Now we have the keys to the cave. We head on down to the cave looking for answers. Arriving at the cave, we head down and unlock the gate, heading further into the cave. After making a couple turns, we can actually hear the gate lock behind us loudly. Someone trapped us in the cave. Our only option at this point is to explore deeper into the cave to find an exit. Using our trusty axe, we actually break a rock wall and explore further. We finally find a way out of the cave, informing Delilah of us getting trapped. After escaping the cave, we come across an old fort that Brian Goodwin, who owned the first backpack, set up. After moving aside, we uncover some new climbing equipment. We decide to take that equipment and head back towards the cave to traverse deeper, hopefully uncovering secrets. A lot of climbing later, traveling deeper into the earth, we actually come across a large cavern with a high ceiling. Ahead of us, we can see an old body. This is the sad fate of Brian Goodwin. It appears to have been a climbing accident. Getting out of the cave again, we break the news to Delilah. It appeared as if there was a climbing accident. Delilah blames herself for not reporting him out in the forest earlier in the summer, as he shouldn't have been out there in the first place. She mentions we may be leaving the next day as the fires have gotten worse. Ending Day 78. Day 79 starts with us packing our belongings to get picked up. We head out the door and down the stairs, starting our way to Delilah's to get extracted. The wave transmitter starts going off. We decide to check it out to see if there's anything we can find. Following the signal reveals a rope that we hadn't seen before, as well as another Walkman cassette waiting for us. Climbing the rope and listening to the tape, we actually discovered that the mystery man we've been finding and seeing around the park is actually Brian Goodwin's father, Ned, who was a previous fire lookout tower. He has been living in the forest since the death of his son 3 years ago. We find his secret hideout in the ground, revealing that he is mostly a bored man living his days in the forest. The death of his son forever changed his path in life. Because of the fires, he's gone deeper into the Shoshone National Forest to find somewhere else to live. Now that the fire has gotten worse, it is time to finally get to the chopper. In order to do so, we must trek to the supply drops up north and take a tram across the canyon. The chopper arrives and we convince Delilah to wait for us, not to be left alone with the fires burning all around. After a little journey, we take the tram off towards Delilah's tower. We finally arrive at Delilah's tower. Looking for her there, we realize that she's not there anymore. She left us behind, leaving on the first helicopter. Turning on the radio, we get in touch with Delilah. We're not mad, we're just disappointed. She lied and left us all behind waiting for the next helicopter, when she could have just told us she was leaving. Shortly after the helicopter arrives, saving us from the burning forest fires, we head on down to the clearing and hop on. We unlock the last story-related achievement, Firewatch, for completing day 79. Now that we have unlocked all the story-related achievements and some of the side achievements, we have two stragglers to collect, the life and times of Raccoon Carter and Old Shoshone. These can be done in replay mode. After hiking to a section of the forest we have not yet to explore, we come across an abandoned cabin. After entering the cabin, we can see that it's seen better days, and we head down into what is left of the basement. It doesn't reveal much, however, if we open the old stove that was left in the basement, we are greeted with a little jump scare of a raccoon leaping at us, unlocking us the life and times of Raccoon Carter for getting attacked by a raccoon. And finally, trekking through some bushes and destroying some twigs, we reveal a secret area. Inside this little hangout spot, we can find an old tape, unlocking the final achievement, Old Shoshone, for listening and gathering the tape. However, for some reason, the tape didn't play for me. Playing through Firewatch took me a little over 3 hours. The time to complete is very dependent on how much sightseeing you do and how much run and walking you do. There's also some settings such as disabling map locations. You have to really base your traversing on landmarks as well as just overall map skills. Firewatch is one of the most visually stunning games that I've ever played. Some of the clips can even show me taking screenshots along the way, as it constantly felt like wallpaper landscapes every corner you turned. Between all the sunrises, sunsets, the game was beautiful. From what I've seen online, I agree that the ending of the story definitely felt underwhelming, leaving some questions unanswered. I definitely recommend checking out some videos on Firewatch in regards to Delilah as well. One great example that I have seen covered in different videos consists of the inconsistencies with Delilah that point to her possible mischief activities involving Ned as well. There's definitely some mysterious things going on. Overall, when it comes to difficulty, the game is not hard whatsoever. For the most part, as long as you make it to the objective, you progress with what I can see no loss in progress anywhere. For the most part, the game is a walking/exploring nature simulator in terms of difficulty. Firewatch gets a 5 out of 5 for a very easy difficulty. For time/grind, from what I've seen, I complete the game pretty average fast at 3 hours, and depending on how much you run or walk or have settings turned on or off for traversing, can actually determine the length of completion. You can actually unlock all the achievements in a single playthrough, unlike me where I had to go back into free play, so that may speed up or slow down time based on what you get during your first playthrough. As well as while playing the levels, you pretty much have an endless amount of time that you can spend exploring the Firewatch, which gets a 5 out of 5 for me, and times it takes to 100%. When it comes to enjoyability, overall I really like this game for multiple reasons. The amazing visuals, the sound/music fit the game well, as well as the overall story. The ending for me was definitely underwhelming, so that in my opinion is the worst part of the story. However, depending on how you might like the game, you might have different opinions. For the most part, this game has a large section of walking and nature viewing simulator while having a discussion with Delilah while you're traversing. So depending on how much action and how fast and slow you might like the game, it might or may not be for you. For me, the enjoyability was a 3 out of 5. I felt that in certain aspects of the game, the pacing wise was really nice. Some levels had you skip right to the next day. However, there was a couple levels where it felt like you just had to walk and walk and walk, and that's it. As well as the end of the game, kind of what downgraded the enjoyability for me. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe and check out my other 100% completion videos. Thank you.